is no better feeling than the NFL regular season ending and you have won your fantasy football championship. Inside of today's video, I am going to help you do exactly that in 2025 by giving you guys my top 40 wide receiver rankings and tiers for the 2025 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. So without further ado, let's get into my updated top 40 wide receiver rankings and tiers for the 2025 fantasy football season. We begin with the S tier at the wide receiver position with my wide receivers 1 through 3, Ja'Marr Chase, CeeDee Lamb, as well as Justin Jefferson. These are the 3 best wide receivers in the National Football League, in my opinion. And in fantasy football from 2022 through 2024, that is nothing short of a fact. Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1 in points per game from 2022 to 2024. Ja'Marr Chase is the wide receiver 2, and CeeDee Lamb is the wide receiver number 3. Ja'Marr Chase is coming off the Triple Crown winning season, leading the league in receptions, receiving yards, as well as receiving touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb is coming off a bit of a stinker of a season, but he was still a top 10 wide receiver in terms of points per game, despite Dak missing so much time and despite the contract negotiations really cutting into the chemistry that Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb had entering into last season. And Justin Jefferson was, well, Justin Jefferson. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is out there slinging the rock to him. Didn't matter if it was Sam Darnold. Wouldn't matter if it was me. Definitely doesn't matter if it's JJ McCarthy. Justin Jefferson is going to continue to be one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the NFL. I feel an immense amount of confidence with these 3 wide receivers, and that is why they're coming off the board unanimously as top 6 picks in fantasy drafts, and they are my clear top 3 wide receivers ranked inside of the S tier. Moving now into the A tier with my wide receivers 4 through 9, Malik Nabers, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., as well as Drizzy Drake London. Now, Malik Nabers is a wide receiver that I've been banging the drum for all summer long. This is a guy that put up huge numbers as a rookie on a dog shit New York Football Giants offense with horsecock Drew Lock and Daniel Jones as the lead signal callers. Now, I understand that Russell Wilson isn't the same Russell Wilson he was back in the day with the 12th man with the Legion of Boom defense behind him, right? This is a different version of Mr. Unlimited, but he still has that deep ball. He is still a better quarterback than Daniel Jones or Drew Lock. So if Malik Nabers was able to finish as a top 8 wide receiver with the schlubs playing quarterback, imagine what he's going to do with Mr. Unlimited. Malik Nabers had some very big games last season, and I believe he is destined to have some great games yet again. And I honestly think he has the potential to be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. This is a guy that had 11.3 targets per game in 15 games, 7.3 receptions, 80.3 receiving yards per game, and 7 total touchdowns in 15 games. He ranked first in dominator rating and 10th in yards per team pass attempt. So I really do believe that his sophomore season will be his best yet, and the ceiling is the wide receiver 1 overall. At number 5, we move to Puka Nacua of the LA Rams. Now, with Matthew Stafford seemingly good to go for the start of the season, Puka Nacua has to keep climbing up our rankings. Puka Nacua, despite the fact that this motherfucker has never scored more than 6 receiving touchdowns at the NFL level, he has finished back-to-back seasons as a top 6 wide receiver in points per game and was the wide receiver 2 last season in points per game. I get that Davante Adams is there, and Davante Adams is going to be taking away the red zone looks for Puka Nacua, but guess what? Again, he only scored 3 receiving touchdowns last season and was the wide receiver 2 in terms of points per game. This guy has had a legendary start to his career. Only 5 wide receivers have hit 500 plus PPR points through their first 28 career games. Odell, Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss, and Puka Nacua. That's some great company to be around. First in yards per out run, 3rd in yards per team pass attempt, 4th in true catch rate. Davante Adams might scare some of you away, but I believe this is a yin and yang situation. Both these guys can coexist and succeed in the same offense. I'm a huge fan of Puka and Davante Adams this season. At number 6, we got Nico Cousin, let's go bowling, Collins of the Houston Texans. Back-to-back top 9 point per game finishes out of Nico Collins. Now, he did end up getting banged up in week number 5, suffering a hamstring strain. But prior to that, this dude was on fire NBA Jam style. Week 1, wide receiver 13, followed by the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 37, a bit of a cool down up against the cold-like Minnesota Vikings. And then week number 4, up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This motherfucker whooped the Jaguars. He tore him a new asshole. Wide receiver number 1, 33.1 fantasy points. Over the last 2 seasons, PFF has the highest graded wide receiver, which is Nico Collins. Again, Nick, I don't really trust PFF. Look, sometimes PFF's a little bit fugazi, but I think we can both acknowledge that Nico Collins has been a very good wide receiver with CJ Stroud. Now, there's no Stephon Diggs in the offense, no Tank Dell. All of the targets are going to be fed to Nico Collins. This is a guy that just hisses excellence, like his name was Will Ferrell inside of Talladega Nights, right? 3rd in yards per route run, 9th in yards per target, 7th in yards per team pass attempt, 7th, 3rd in dominated rating, and 5th in explosive rating. Shout out to Ricky Bobby. I love Mr. Nico Collins this year, and he makes me happy. Shout out to Simple Jack. At number 7, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown is as safe as it gets. It's like wrapping a Durex around your wide receiver 1 spot. Amon-Ra St. Brown, doesn't matter if Ben Johnson's there, doesn't matter who the fucking offensive coordinator is. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a crucial piece inside of this Detroit Lions offense. Back-to-back seasons as a top 5 wide receiver in PPR points per game. Another guy that is incredibly efficient, 13th in true catch rate, 15th in target separation, 11th yards per team pass attempt, 14th yards per out run, and Jared Goff, spoiler alert, pretty good, 2nd in target accuracy. He's going to finish top 10 in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and total touchdowns, as he always does. In the last 2 seasons, he scored 22 receiving touchdowns. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, he's kind of just the classic case of don't overthink things with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be safe yet again. At number 8, we got Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wide receiver 4 on the season, wide receiver 12 in points per game. And he didn't even have Trevor Lawrence for the whole season. 7 games of Patriots legend Mac Jones. Brian Thomas Jr., only Jamar Chase scored more fantasy points from week 13 on after the Jags bye week, 22.9 points per game for BTJ. He was special to end the season, and again, that was with Mac Jones. In the fantasy football playoffs, in PPR leagues, he was the wide receiver number 1. I get they end up bringing in Travis Hunter, the Heisman, into this offense, and that's going to make people scared. They're going to be scared shitless of Brian Thomas Jr. I am not scared at all. The efficiency last year was crazy. 8th in yards per out run, 15th yards per target, 9th yards per team pass attempt, 2nd in dominated rating as a rookie. Both Malik Neighbors and BTJ are going to take leaps in their sophomore season. The LSU boys, go Tigers. I love BTJ this year, and even with them bringing in Travis Hunter, the number 2 overall pick, I don't give a damn. I'm still drafting BTJ very highly, and I think he should be considered as a potential first-round pick, but you can get him in the 2nd round. Speaking of guys that could potentially be first-round picks but aren't, Drizzy Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. Last year with Michael Penix Jr. for the final 3 games of the season, 8 targets, 13 targets, and 18 targets. Total, 39 targets from week 16 through 18, first at wide receiver. First in yards with 352, and he ranked first in half PPR points per game. It isn't rocket science to realize that Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London have a great connection together. Randy Moss and Tom Brady, Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes. Think of some other duos. You can mention them. Fucking LeBron and D. Wade. LeBron and lying about reading books. Just things that go together, just like Drake London and Michael Penix Jr. We are going to see Drake London get absolutely peppered with targets game in and game out. I get that Michael Penix Jr. might not be the future of the Atlanta Falcons in your eyes. He might not be this potential future fucking top 5 quarterback, but it doesn't matter if he's going to feed the ball to Drake London. 10th in yards per out run last year, 12th in yards per team pass attempt, 5th in EPA, and 12th in fantasy points per run, and he's just getting started. Defense is also shitting themselves thinking about Bijan Robinson, so I feel very, very confident in Drizzy Drake London entering into this season. Now we move into the B tier with Ladd McConkey, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, and Devontae Adams. Now, Ladd McConkey had a great finish to his rookie year. This is something that I love to talk about with breakout candidates. They start off the season kind of so-so. 12.9 PPR points per game from weeks 1 through week 9. Then weeks 10 through 18, 17.2 PPR points per game. They bring in Keenan Allen, and I think Keenan Allen's going to suck away the targets from a guy like Quentin Johnston if he's able to stay healthy. A guy like Trey Harris, he might be able to stop the potential breakout of a guy like Trey Harris, but I don't think he's taking away the wide receiver 1 spot from Ladd McConkey in terms of targets per game. Ladd McConkey looked incredible towards the end of the season as a rookie. Him and Justin Herbert built that connection. I understand that the Harbaugh offense wants to run the ball, and that is 100% true, but Ladd McConkey is still going to get his through the air. Another guy where the efficiency metrics make your eyes want to just ejaculate. 8th in target accuracy, 7th in yards per route run, 8th in yards per target, 8th in yards per team pass attempt, and 6th in EPA. This reeks of breakout year for Mr. Ladd McConkey. Next up, we got A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 11. A.J. Brown, to me, is one of the safer wide receivers going early on because I think that A.J. Brown is more than likely going to finish as a top 18-ish wide receiver, probably going to finish inside of the top 12, but he's probably not going to be the guy that wins you your league. And what I mean by that is A.J. Brown is going to be very reliable because when he's healthy, he is a absolute fucking behemoth. He's a beast. It is very hard to stop him, especially inside of the red zone, but this is a team that wants to run the ball with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So A.J. Brown won't be given that crazy amount of targets like a guy like Malik Neighbors, like a guy like Drake London, Jefferson, CeeDee, and Chase can get. And again, is that going to ultimately matter? Is A.J. Brown going to be a bust? Fuck no, baby. But I just don't think that A.J. Brown has that league-winning upside that I would like out of a player in this range. So that's why I'm kind of staying away from A.J. Brown, even though I do believe the guy is an incredible talent. At number 12, we have Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek is dealing with an oblique strain that is not expected to make him miss week number 1. Now, in my opinion, he may actually start off a little bit slow due to not having worked with Tua Tagovailoa as much in the offseason, but once these guys get on the same page, I think Tyreek Hill has the upside to be the wide receiver number 1. Now, if you're comparing A.J. Brown to Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown is light years more safe compared to Tyreek Hill, but I do believe Tyreek Hill has more upside. Now, last year, he's dealing with Tua getting hurt. He's dealing with the wrist injury, and he finishes outside of the top 20 wide receivers in terms of points per game. He's the wide receiver number 29. But before that, in Miami, he's the wide receiver 2 and the wide receiver number 3 in points per game. So was last season just some fluke, or is the guy completely washed? I really think it was much more of a fluke. He was still getting open. 13th in route win rate. He was 14th in unrealized air yards. I think Tyreek is going to be significantly better in 2025. Last year, with Tua, he was the wide receiver 19. Without Tua, wide receiver 61. I get wide receiver 19 isn't winning your league based upon where you drafted Tyreek Hill, but the guy still has it, in my opinion. As a Dolphin from 2022 to 2024, even with 2024 being dog shit without Tua Tagovailoa, he is the wide receiver 4 in points per game from 2022 to 2024, right behind Justin Jefferson, right behind CeeDee Lamb, right behind Jamar Chase. So while a lot of people are going to panic off of Tyreek Hill, I'm still going to continue to bang the drum for him. Of course, if we start to get news closer to week 1 that, oh, maybe Tyreek Hill's not going to play, and oh, maybe this injury is very, 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 very serious, then I'm ready to backtrack on this statement. But right now, I feel very confident in Tyreek. At number 13, we got T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. Last season, in 12 games, he had 4 top 9 finishes. He had 12 games played, He dealt with some injuries, 2 games missed with a hamstring, 2 games with a quad strain, 12 total games played for him. But he was 5th in red zone targets, 9th in target quality rating, 16th in contested catch rate, 20th in yards per team pass attempt, and 24th in fantasy points per route run. Wide receiver 6 in PPR points per game last season. So while people are going to panic and be like, Nick, how can you rank T. Higgins that high when, guess what? Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1. It's 1A, 1B. It's the yin and yang that we're about to talk about with Davante Adams. 2 great wide receivers can coexist, especially when the Cincinnati Bengals defense sucks straight up donkey cock, and they're going to have to throw the ball a ton late in games because the defense is going to absolutely sell even up against garbage teams like the Cleveland Browns. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco went out there and looked surgical up like Dr. fucking Miami up against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. At number 14 to close out the B tier, we got Davante Adams, death taxes. Davante Adams, top 12 wide receiver in points per game. 9 straight seasons as a top 15 point per game wide receiver, with 8 of 9 seasons inside the top 12. Last year, he finished as a top 12 points per game wide receiver, despite playing a couple games in Viva Las Vegas and a bunch of games with the New York Jumbo Jets as the ship was sinking. And it was like the Titanic, where Jack has to die, but Rose gets to live. Jack was Garrett Wilson, Rose was Davante Adams, and if you've seen Titanic, spoiler alert, Jack, for some reason, can't get onto the plank of wood or door that they're on. Even though there's clearly enough room, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But Garrett Wilson sunk. Davante Adams lives to tell the tale. Davante Adams is just simply that fucking guy. I've been telling people for years, you simply cannot fade him. Doesn't matter how old he's getting, he's still going to be very involved. And again, if Stafford is healthy, then Davante Adams has that top 5 league winning ceiling. Last year, he was 9th in targets. He was averaging 10 targets per game, 6.1 receptions, 75.9 receiving yards, 8 total touchdowns in 14 games. So I did think he played, he played in 14 games total. Some of them with the Jets, most of them only 3 games with the Las Vegas Raiders. This is not a guy that is a quote-unquote super big injury risk, in my opinion, either. So I feel very good about Davante Adams. I think he's going to be getting a lot of red zone looks from Matthew Stafford. And again, if Stafford is able to stay healthy, then this is just another guy that reeks of league winner. Now we move on into the 4th tier with my wide receivers 15 through 19. Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, and wiki DJ Moore. But before we talk about them some more, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends, our partner over on Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash, as well as receiving my draft guide sent to your email the very next day, as long as you deposit $10 and play through the $10. If you're new to Underdog, you're like, Nick, what is Underdog? It is the best place to do best ball fantasy football drafts in the world. You're like, Nick, what is best ball? Best ball is the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup at the end of every single week. Their biggest tournament, Best Ball Mania, $15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place, $1 million to second place, and just $25 to enter. They also have the puppy, $5 to enter, $100,000 to first place. So come draft with me over on Underdog. I'm in drafts all of the time on there. Make sure you guys do check that out. And if you want my rankings cheat sheet, you don't want to sign up over on Underdog, link in the video description for the Patreon for $12.50. So Garrett Wilson is my wide receiver 15. Garrett Wilson always seems to be the guy that I fall for. I fall for Garrett Wilson, especially last year, and while he wasn't a complete and utter bust, he did not live up to my personal expectations. He's had 3 straight years with 147 plus targets, 3 straight years with over 1,000 receiving yards, and he scored 7 receiving touchdowns last year. But once Davante Adams showed up to this offense, he kind of made Garrett Wilson the side chick, the side bitch, right? And that really sucked if you were a Garrett Wilson owner. He ranked 4th in targets, 5th in receptions, 11th in receiving yards, and 20th in total touchdowns. I fully understand that Justin Fields isn't this elite passer. We all know that he is far from that, but Garrett Wilson's the clear number 1 receiver on this team. They have chemistry going all the way back to college at The Ohio State University. So while there are some things to worry about Garrett Wilson, the guy's a phenomenal player. 94th percentile success rate versus man coverage, 82.4% success rate versus zone, 78.6% success rate versus press, and his best contested catch rate of his career last year in 2024 via Matt Harmon's reception perception. I think things are going to get better for Garrett Wilson. He is a great bet on talent. It's just a question of if he will ever actually be able to do it, and maybe the Jets are just fucking cursed and he'll never end up being good in fantasy. At number 16, we have JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Last year was his best year of his 2-year career, 2023 and 2024. Now, the offense looks a lot different. DK Metcalf is in Pittsburgh. Cooper Kupp goes from the Rams to the Seattle Seahawks, and Tyler Lockett is chilling in Tennessee with Cam Ward. So it's JSN, it's Cooper Kupp, it's Torrey Horton. They're really Horton here's a who. There isn't really a lot of weapons over here in Seattle. So JSN is going to get targets. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Violet Myers, I have some legitimate questions about how this offense is going to work. For one, I think with Clint Kubiak, they are going to want to run the ever-living shit out of the ball. For 2, I don't like Sam Darnold as much as I like Geno Smith. Now, Sam Darnold looked good in Minnesota, but I think that's because the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, was in a way putting the wool over our eyes. He was able to hide the shit tier quarterback play from Sam Darnold. I think that's going to get exposed in 4K in Seattle. So I think JSN is still fine. I just don't necessarily love picking him based upon where he goes in a lot of drafts. But if he falls to around the wide receiver 16 range, I'm definitely fine selecting him there. Next up, we got Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. Wide receiver 15 in PPR, wide receiver 27 in PPR points per game. Now, we talked about how Ladd McConkey started off the season not so hot, finishes off the season on the right foot. The exact same thing with Courtland Sutton. 9.7 PPR points per game from weeks 1 through 8, and then weeks 9 through 16, or 9 through 18, the end of the season, he scores 18.1 PPR points per game. Bo Nix is now another year in the NFL, his sophomore season. Sean Payton getting another year to work with him. And Courtland Sutton's still the number one weapon there. They get rid of Devon Vale. He is now on the Saints for some fucking reason. The Saints just getting absolutely fleeced in a trade. Typical. And they have Marvin Mims, they have Tim Patrick, they have Evan Ingram, but Courtland Sutton is still the head of the table. Shout out to Roman Reigns in this offense. And if Courtland Sutton's able to put up the numbers that he put up towards the end of last season, I think he's going to be a very safe wide receiver 2 that sometimes you can draft at the price of a wide receiver number 3. Next up, we got DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I have said this a bunch this summer because I've talked so heavily about DK Metcalf. I've been giving him the Gawk Gawk 9000 special since like June when I started making videos at a serious pace where I was making like a video every single day. Now I'm making 2 videos every single day, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. I just checked my stats recently, and only 38% of the fucking people that are watching these videos are subscribed. Why are you not subscribed? If you watch this far into the video, you already liked what you saw. You already liked the video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button too. But DK Metcalf was a guy that I've been hating on for years because there was a loaded wide receiver room. He could never really elevate above a guy like Lockett. He could never really separate himself from JSN getting all these targets, right? And it kind of sucked because DK Metcalf just has the build of a Greek god, the build of an Adonis, the build of the kind of guy that you would think would be the prototypical top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, and it just kind of never worked out. It was just kind of never consistent enough. But now in Pittsburgh, with Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods, he is the clear wide receiver 1 in this team. Him and Aaron Rodgers clearly have a good connection together based upon the training camp reports and everything that I've seen out of DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers. I get, is Aaron Rodgers the same guy hitting the discount double check emote, the same guy that was back-to-back Michael Jordan 96, 97 MVPs? Fuck no, baby. But DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers, we saw Devontae Adams play very well with Aaron Rodgers last season, so I think DK Metcalf is going to be able to put up big numbers, and people are going to be very shocked because, you know, DK Metcalf has burned so many people, even though I've told people for years not to draft him. If you listen to me, now you just get to get that nice deal on him. It's like fucking Black Friday shopping, grabbing DK Metcalf right now, because everyone's already hating on him because they have been fucked over by him before. We haven't been. It is now time to buy on the low. Buy low, sell high. Shout out to, what's that guy's name? Is it Jim Cramer? The guy that's on TV that just fucking yells, you know what I'm talking about? I think that's his name. The dude that's just like talking about stocks and he's just screaming at you. That is exactly who I'm talking about. Next up, we got Wiki DJ Moore to close out the C tier. DJ Moore, the most recent report on him is that the Bears, according to ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, will likely manufacture touches for DJ Moore out of the backfield. Now, if you drafted DJ Moore based upon the fact that I loved him last year, you felt like you got kicked right in the gonads, but we are just one season off of him having a huge year in 2023, where he was the wide receiver 9 in points per game. So I think brighter days are ahead with Ben Johnson. Now, there's been so much hype up about Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore's kind of falling out of favor in the mind of many fantasy players. But if he is going to be getting touches out of the backfield, especially in the red zone, which there have been clips that I've seen of that, then even if DJ Moore isn't getting a super crazy amount of targets, he's going to make up for it with the rushing ability. We saw Deebo Samuel do that back in like 2021. And DJ Moore also might just end up being the number 1 target on the team. And if Caleb Williams is able to take that next step up in 2025, and if Ben Johnson's able to caress this offense into being a lot better, then I think that DJ Moore is going to absolutely explode this year. And last year he was getting open. It was just kind of Caleb Williams was a bit of a dumbass, 5th in target separation, 4th in juke rate. So I think this is going to be a much better season out of Mr. the DJ, Wiki DJ Moore. Now we move on into the D tier here with my wide receivers number 20 through 24. At number 20, we have Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, frankly, Marvin Harrison Jr. is like a 4th of July experience, and I think this year is how we're going to describe it. I think it could go one of two ways. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is either going to show off why the Arizona Cardinals put up that heavy draft capital to select him, why he played so well at Ohio State, or so he's either going to explode in a good way. Oh, it's the fucking 4th of July. Look at all these fun fireworks. It's such a fun time. Or it's going to end like that guy Terry that's in the wheelchair where they're like, back it up, Terry. And he doesn't back up. There's fucking fireworks hitting him like he's Jason Pierre-Paul, right? Or like he's Najee Harris, sadly, taking some fireworks to the fucking eye. It's one or the other. It's going to be a great season or it's going to be complete bust. I don't think we're going to get this year like some in the middle of the road season out of Marvin Harrison Jr. It's either going to be real bad, or really great. Great success. Shout out to Borat. Last year, there really isn't much to talk about. He flashed twice. He had 2 good games. Wide receiver 1 up against the Rams in week 2, and I'm like, holy shit, he's back. Right? Week 1 up against the Bills, he scores 1.4 fantasy points. I'm like, he's back. I was right. And then he doesn't really do much after that. And then he scores 23 points up against my Dolphins. It's like, oh my gosh, he's back. And then he never really does that again. But on the bright side, there's a lot of tape to look at college. I think he is still really good. It's just the usage last year was very frustrating. The routes that he was running were just wrong. Completely wrong. Not what they should have been doing. And there are very high expectations on him. According to Johnny Venables, he's been the MVP of training camp. He's the most dominant player there. He's unguardable. Let's see what happens. Definitely a risk, but high upside. At number 21, we got Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wide receiver 14 in PPR, wide receiver 11 in points per game, 11 straight seasons with 1,000 or more yards, 6 of 11 seasons with 10 or more touchdowns, and he has not finished outside the top 18 in PPR points per game since 2017. I love Mike Evans. I have been a Mike Evans fan since the very beginning, since he was at Texas A&M with Money Manziel, baby. I've been loving Mike Evans. But my problem is, if you look at last season, Mike Evans really wasn't the best when Godwin was feasting early on. Then Godwin gets hurt, and Mike Evans starts to flourish. Now, I get Nick, Godwin's probably he's not going to be playing for the first month of the season, at least until October. But now they have a Emeka Egbuka, who Baker Mayfield and all the fucking coaching staff are just all loving on. They love Emeka Egbuka. So I think that's really going to hurt Mike Evans this season. I think he's still going to be fine, but he's just not the same guy he used to be. He'll probably put up 1,000 receiving yards, though, and not completely go bust for you. But at ADP, I just don't love him where he's going. Next up, we got Ted McMillan, T-Mac of the Carolina Panthers, 8th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft out of Arizona. Not necessarily the best separator, but this is a guy that makes incredible contested catches. We've already seen it in preseason, and we saw it in training camp as well. I believe that Bryce Young and this offense are going to get even better in 2025. I think what we saw at the end of last season, where Bryce Young ended up having a very good finish, is what we're going to be seeing a lot more of in 2025. I just really believe that maybe we overlooked what Bryce Young was in his rookie year and in his sophomore year, and what we saw towards the end of last season is much more of the quarterback that he was at Alabama, the ability of a player that, was drafted as highly as Bryce Young, the short king, was. So if Ted McMillan's the wide receiver 1 there, when we saw Adam Thielen have some crazy Thanksgiving rich people level feasts towards the end of last season, imagine what T-Mac's going to do when he's light years, shout out to Buzz, better than what Adam Thielen was, Adam Thielen last year. Next up, we got Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans, wide receiver 28 PPR last year, wide receiver 41. Nick, you told me to draft Calvin Ridley last year, and you were wrong. You were very wrong. I know I was wrong. He had a couple good games, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 3, but ultimately, in the middle of those games, there's games where he literally scores 0.9 points, 1.9 fantasy points, where he basically absolutely spit roasted you last season. He dropped a big fat dump on your fantasy football team's chest, but it wasn't because Calvin Ridley wasn't able to get open. It wasn't because Calvin Ridley went out there and just looked like dog shit. It was because Will Levis is a fucking asshole. The guy cannot read green eggs and ham. He can't read red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish, right? He can't do it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, ABC. Shout out to Mike Jack. It was embarrassing out of Will Levis. So Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft, He is going to save Calvin Ridley. He's going to get Calvin Ridley looking right. 9th in explosive rating last year, 10th in yards per reception, 1st in unrealized air yards, 91st in target accuracy. I think this is a big bounce back season out of Calvin Ridley. At number 24, shout out to Kobe. We have Stefon Diggs of the New England Patriots, allegedly, potentially the baby daddy of Cardi B's new child. That's a little bit crazy, but it don't really matter for fantasy football. Stefon Diggs last year in Houston, I was fading him like it was my job. Going from the Bills to the Texans when Tank Dell played so well, when Nico Collins played so well, I told everyone you would have to be a fool to draft Stefon Diggs, and I was looking like the idiot, right? Because he looked very good. 4 of 8 games, he had over 18 points per game, but the kicker was he ends up getting hurt, so look who's right, me. I'm a genius. I told you to fade him. I totally knew he was going to get hurt, and then if you drafted him, you're disappointed because he got hurt, but when he was healthy, he was looking incredibly fine. He was looking really, really good, like Megan Fox in that car, looking at the car at the beginning of Transformers. Shout out to Shia LaBeouf. This guy has had 15 plus PPR points per game in 5 straight seasons. The Patriots are like the media's love child. The Vegas lines love the Patriots. Everyone loves Drake May. Everyone's talking about Drake May is going to absolutely explode in season number 2. So guess who the number 1 receiver is? It's Stefon Diggs, and Stefon Diggs is going to perform very well. He does it in Minnesota with the Vikings. He does it in Buffalo with the Bills, and he does it in Houston, and now he's going to do it with the New England Patriots. Now we move on into the E tier, my biggest tier by far. My wide receivers 25 through 36. Terry McLaurin, Devontae Smith, Rashee Rice, George Pickens, Zay Flowers, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen Waddle, Jacoby Myers, Jameson Williams, Roma Dunze, Slick, Ricky Pearsall, and Travis Hunter. Terry McLaurin still hasn't signed the contract. He still hasn't been traded. What the fuck is going on? Now, Jaden Daniels did say today on the 21st that, the team's close to the contract. We'll see what happens. If he does sign the contract, I'm going to move him up the rankings a little bit, but I still am not a big fan of Terry McLaurin, especially at ADP. This guy in his career, from 2019 to 2013, 7 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, and 4 touchdowns. And then last year, Jaden Stormy Daniels comes to town. He pulls a rabbit out the hat, 13 receiving touchdowns. So if he scores 13 receiving touchdowns and is only the wide receiver 16 in PPR points per game, what do you think is going to happen if he just scores 10 touchdowns, just 8 touchdowns, just 6 touchdowns? The guy's value is going to absolutely plummet. I love Terry McLaurin. I have been talking up Terry McLaurin since Dwayne Haskins, RIP, was the quarterback of the Washington Commanders. I have always believed in Terry McLaurin, but when push comes to shove, based on what we saw last season, if the touchdowns weren't there, now I know you can't just say if. Shout out Justin Herbert, the if man, right? I know if my aunt had balls, she would be my uncle, but ultimately, I don't think he's scoring 13 receiving touchdowns again, and I think he's going to end up being a bust at ADP. But if you can get him later, he's fine in this range. Like, if you're getting him as like the wide receiver 24, 25 in this range, I'd be fine with that. Next up, we got Devontae Smith. Now, Devontae Smith, I feel the same way about Devontae Smith as I do with A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith will probably end up beating out where I have him ranked. He'll probably finish as a top 24 wide receiver. But my problem is, what is he really going to do for your fantasy team? Is he really going to go from, the wide receiver 20-ish off the board and finish as like the wide receiver 8? Or is he just going to finish exactly where you fucking drafted him? Which is why I don't love drafting him. Because for one, they have A.J. Brown. For 2, they want to run the fuck out of the ball. And for 3, last year, there were 3 games, right? Last year, we had 10 plus targets. Guess which games those were? 2 of those are when A.J. Brown was fucking hurt. So if you're not commanding a large target share, if your targets are fluctuating rapidly, I can't trust you. Now, I get any given week, Devontae Smith could break one loose. He could really win you your week. But I don't think Devontae Smith has that league winner DNA on such a run-heavy team. So for that reason, I'm out on Devontae Smith. Again, if he falls in your draft, then yeah, I'm fine taking him. But at ADP, kind of gross. Next up, we got Rashee Rice. Now, I love Rashee Rice. If you guys watched my first rankings video from like May or early June, before we thought that Rashee Rice was going to get suspended, because initially we didn't think he would, I was talking about Rashee Rice as a top 12 wide receiver. I legitimately think Rashee Rice is that good. He was on a war path from weeks 1 through 3 before we ended up seeing Patrick Mahomes take out his knee in week number 4 up against the Chargers. Wide receiver 14, 16, and wide receiver number 3. The man was seeing a ridiculous amount of targets, 7.3 per game, but honestly, that number is tanked down by the fact that in week 4, he technically played a game, so he had 9 targets, 6 targets, and 14 targets. He had 2 touchdowns in 3 games. The guy was a beast. He was going crazy, but now he might get suspended for the first. Now, he's not going to get suspended for the first 4 games this season because Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is expected to have his disciplinary hearing with the NFL on Tuesday, September 30th in New York. This means that Rice is now likely to be able to play the first 4 weeks of the season before any discipline occurs. So he might play the first 4 weeks, then get suspended for like 6 to 8 games, and then come back. And my problem with that is it's great. Like, look, he's going to be back for the fantasy playoffs. But what if he comes back and he's rusty? What if he comes back and he's sluggish because he hasn't played an NFL game in a fucking month and a half? And then you're kind of waiting for him to catch fire. Katniss Everdeen, catching fire, the Hunger Games, right? You're expecting that to happen, and then maybe it takes some time. And now maybe you're starting him because he's Rashee Rice. He's on the Chiefs. He's going to be good, right? And now you're just getting plowed every week because he's scoring 7 fantasy points, and you're pissed. That's kind of just how I feel about Rashee Rice. I love him. If he was guaranteed to play all 17 games, I'd be talking about him as a top 10 wide receiver. But that's not the universe we live in, right? We need Doctor Strange to create another universe or just go to another multiverse where fucking Rashee Rice is good to go. He didn't create a multi-car crash in Dallas. Maybe then we'd be liking him. At number 28, speaking of liking, in Dallas, we got George Pickens of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry's World. Wide receiver 42 last year, wide receiver 40 in points per game. Nick, George Pickens has never really been that good in his career in fantasy football. I know, but now in Dallas, I believe the upside is significantly higher. For one, Dak is the best quarterback that George Pickens will have played with. For 2, CeeDee Lamb's going to be taking away a lot of the best coverage, so George Pickens is going to be able to get those easier targets. For 3, George Pickens has been exploding like Mount Vesuvius in training camp. All signs are pointing towards George Pickens having that breakout season. Again, I get you might have fallen for the trap of Pickens in the past, but he was wide receiver 3 in explosive rating last year, 15th yards per team pass attempt, 14th in yards per reception. This is a team that's not really going to run the ball a ton because the running back core is bad. It's really, really bad. So George Pickens is going to get a lot of pass catching opportunities. Plus, if Micah Parsons really doesn't sign back with the team, this defense could be severely hurt by that. Last year, he hit career best marks last season with success rate versus man and success rate versus press. He was 83rd percentile versus press, 72.8% success rate versus man coverage. I've always believed in the player George Pickens. We just need to see some consistency, and I think we'll end up seeing that in Dallas. At number 29, we have Zay Flowers. Now, Zay Flowers is another one of these guys that I like. I like who Zay Flowers is. I think Zay Flowers is a very good wide receiver, and I think on a different NFL team, we might end up seeing Zay Flowers put up a ridiculous season. I legitimately think Zay Flowers is that good. But Zay Flowers, just like Devontae Smith, just like A.J. Brown, is on one of the most, if not the most run-heavy teams in the NFL. And the problem here is, even if he gets a crazy amount of volume, the touchdowns are very unlikely to go the way of Zay Flowers. He scored 4 receiving touchdowns last season, and he scored 5 receiving touchdowns in 2023. So he's going to get his 100-plus targets. He's going to have those big games. But ultimately, where is the crazy breakout upside if the touchdowns have not went his way 2 years in a row? Now, maybe he flukes that Terry McLaurin season. Maybe because the Ravens are so fucking good, he has that great season. But in my opinion, when the whole squad is healthy, Mark Andrews is a much better red zone weapon. Isaiah Likely is a better red zone weapon. Lamar Jackson's a better red zone weapon. And so is Derrick Henry. So he's like 5th on the totem pole. So for that reason, I'm out on Zay Flowers. Next up, we got Emeka Egbuka. Now, this report from Adam Schefter is from today. Buccaneers plan to activate wide receiver Chris Godwin off the physically unable to perform list and will have him on the 53-man roster. So if you just read that, you're just absolutely ecstatic. You're like, ha, 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 ha. Nick, you were wrong. You told me Chris Godwin wasn't going to play to start off the season. Ha, ha, you fucking idiot, right? And then you just read a little bit further, and you see, but only to begin his ramp-up process for games, not to immediately play them. Godwin still is unlikely to play until October as he continues to recover from the fractured ankle he suffered in week 7. He's expected to start practicing in week 2, but the team thinks he is right where he should be at this time and is pleased with his recovery. Great. If he's not playing until October, him and Baker Mayfield are going to become better friends. Him and Baker Mayfield on the field are going to have a better connection. Jalen McMillan is now expected to miss at least 8 games due to a severe neck strain. So now, Chris Godwin whacked out for the first at least 4 games. Jalen McMillan whacked out for at least the next 8 games. So it's just Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka out there. And with all the praise that Baker has sung this offseason, he has sung beautifully like Junior Soprano in that episode where after the funeral, he's singing. You want to know who else sings beautifully? A guy that we will not mention who used to be a kicker on the Baltimore Ravens, an opera singer. His singing was beautiful too. But Baker Mayfield is going to be able to elevate Emeka Egbuka. Again, Baker Mayfield has waxed poetically all offseason about him. And this guy had 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons, both with 10 receiving touchdowns at Ohio State. School that has a lot of great wide receivers around him. So I really do believe that Emeka Egbuka, who was the 22nd overall pick, or not the 22nd overall pick, the 19th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, is going to go beast mode as a rookie. This feels like when you were getting Brian Thomas Jr. later on in drafts last year. It was a straight up gold mine, and his ADP is going to keep on rising, and I am sweating profusely. I'm starting to look a little bit red. I'm starting to look like the Kool-Aid man. Oh yeah! Next up, we got Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. Now, Jalen Waddle went bust last season, just like Tyreek Hill. If you drafted him, he didn't do diddly squat. Despite having 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons before that, despite being a top 21 receiver in points per game 3 straight seasons before that, not last year, not at all, wide receiver 50 in points per game. But Jonnu Smith was getting a lot of looks last year, and Jonnu Smith is now in Pittsburgh doing ayahuasca with Aaron Rodgers. So now the door is much more open for targets to come the way of Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's also been practicing with Tua, where Tyreek hasn't. So at least early on in the year, Waddle might end up being the number 1 receiver in terms of targets in this offense. Sure, was Waddle phenomenal last year? No, right? The quarterback injury hurt him. He wasn't playing the best either. And again, Jonnu Smith was getting fed for no fucking reason. And now with Jonnu Smith gone, I feel very, 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 very confident in what I've seen out of Jalen Waddle in the past to kind of just brush last year to the side and continue to believe in Jalen Waddle. At number 32, we have Detroit Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams. Last year, his clear breakout campaign just he more than doubles his targets from 2023 to 2024. 91 targets, 58 receptions, 1,000 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. Very nice. I like J-Mo, not going to be the most consistent player. J-Mo might be a kind of captive of Ben Johnson leaving. He might be a guy that loses value because Ben Johnson is no longer there. He was 5th in yards per target, 6th in yards per reception, 11th in target separation, 19th in route win rate. I think he's a great receiver. I think there's a lot of weapons on this team. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's still clearly the guy. If you want to draft Jameson Williams, go ahead. He has big upside. He's like Jalen Waddle, except for I just have a little bit more confidence in Jalen Waddle compared to Jameson Williams. At number 33, we have Jacoby Myers of the Las Vegas Raiders. Wide receiver 19 in PPR, wide receiver 23 in PPR points per game. Back-to-back seasons as a top 24 wide receiver in PPR points per game. Now, Jacoby Myers, I don't think is ever really going to have that season where he is a league winner. But he's kind of the guy that you take in like the mid to late rounds of your draft. That's just a safety blanket for you. Maybe you took a risk and you drafted Tyreek. Right? You took Garrett Wilson. You took more risky players early on in the draft. A guy like Jacoby Myers pairs perfectly with that, because if that risk becomes true, right? If you draft Marvin Harrison Jr., it's looking like last year all over again, then Jacoby Myers can be that nice fill-in for you. He's going to be very, very reliable. He's probably not going to be a top 10 receiver, even if Pete Carroll's able to transform this team to be a lot better with Geno Smith, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and that's fine. Because he's going to be all reliable for you. And again, back-to-back years inside the top 24 in points per game, a very safe bet. Next up, we got Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears, wide receiver 49 in PPR points per game, 65 in PPR, wide receiver 49 in PPR overall, 65 in PPR points per game. Bad luck or quarterback play, percent of open air yards that were uncatchable last year. He ranked second. 48% of the time, the guy was wide open. The ball was uncatchable. And I just have to believe Caleb Johnson is much better than what we saw, or Caleb Williams is much better than what we saw last season. Ben Johnson called Rome Odunze an offensive player he never really had in Detroit. He goes on to talk about how he can win basically any route outside the numbers. Guy's incredible. Sucking the guy dry. So if the coaching staff is talking about him this way, if we thought Rome Odunze was a great wide receiver coming into the NFL draft, which we all thought, he was legitimately a generational prospect when you look at the NFL like next gen stats for the combine. So I think there's a good chance he breaks out this year. Number 35, we got Ricky Rolex, Ricky Pearsall. Again, we've talked about this before. We've made this joke before. Ricky Pearsall is the kind of guy I want on my team. Why? Because this motherfucker was willing to die for his Rolex. There was a guy that tried to rob him. He shot him. He shot Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall ate that bullet like it was nothing, right? He takes the guy's gun, he shoots the motherfucker, and gets his Rolex back. That's the kind of guy that's going to fight for the next yard. That's the kind of guy that's going to fight for your fantasy team. The man took a bullet and played in the NFL last year. He's a beast. He really is. He had 3 big games. Wide receiver 13, 7, and 14. Now entering into the year where Juwan Jennings, who knows how healthy he's going to be. Brandon Ayuk probably going to miss a serious amount of games, at least 4, 5, 6 games. Ricky Rolex is the only man standing, and that's going to lead to a great connection with Brock Purdy early on in the season. And all reports out of training camp have been very positive for Pearsall. At number 36, we got Travis Hunter. The most recent report from today is that Travis Hunter was held out of Thursday's joint practice with the Miami Dolphins because of an upper body injury, and the number 2 draft pick isn't even going to play in the Jaguars preseason finale Saturday night up against the Dolphins. Liam Cohen said, though, if this was week 1 of the NFL season up against the Panthers, I believe he would have played. So nothing to worry about too much, but just something to monitor. Earlier on, a couple of weeks ago, Liam Cohen was on the Rich Eisen show and said 80% of the offensive snaps will be played by Travis Hunter, which basically means they're going to use him on defense a little bit, but he's mainly going to be an offensive piece, and maybe when he's not on the field, they're probably going to try to run the ball, and then if they're going to pass the ball, he'll be out there for those. So I think Travis Hunter is going to be perfectly fine in Jacksonville, probably more hit or miss, probably going to be tough to actually figure out when to start him because there's going to be games where he plays more on defense and you're really confused, but you probably don't draft the guy number 2 overall just to be the corner of your team, right, where the offense makes the money in the NFL. I think that he is going to be getting a lot of looks in Jacksonville, and hopefully Liam Cohen is able to jolt this offense alive. Now we move on into the F tier here with Xavier Worthy, Jerry Jeudy, Matthew Golden, and Deebo Samuel. Xavier Worthy, I liked coming out of college. Last year, we saw some big bright spots, especially in the Super Bowl, where they were getting the ever-living shit beat out of him, but he had a good game up against the Philadelphia Eagles. But if you look at last year, sure, the numbers were fine. He scores 9 total touchdowns, 9th. And he had some good games, but he was 76th in yards per out run, 94th in yards per target, 88th in yards per reception, 98th in true catch rate, and 70th in explosive rating. So unless you expect the Chiefs offense to be like way different than last year, you might be drafted a guy that's super inefficient, where you just need that deep bomb to go his way for him to have the big game. And if Rashee Rice is the Rashee Rice that we're used to, Rashee Rice is going to be the clear wide receiver 1 on this team when he's playing. 70.2% of Xavier Worthy's targets last season traveled 9 yards or fewer down the field. A lot of design plays that probably aren't going to be designed to go his way as much with Rashee Rice out there. So for me, I just don't really like Xavier Worthy at ADP. Now, if you're playing best ball and underdog, I've drafted him a bunch because he's going to have those huge games, right? And it's cheap to stack him with Pat Mahomes. And even though I don't like Pat Mahomes in redraft this season, he's going to have his big games, right? He's fucking Patrick Mahomes. This is Xavier Worthy, the speedster, the Flash, Barry Allen. So that's why I like Xavier Worthy in best ball, but in redraft, turn the other cheek. Next up, we got, and it's again, it's fine to draft guys that are high upside that have risk, right? But to me, it's like, I think the risk is very, very big here. Kind of outweighs the reward, in my opinion, in a redraft league. Next up, we got Jerry Jeudy of the Cleveland Browns. Wide receiver 21 last year in points per game. Had a great year in Denver with the Broncos. Wide receiver 19 back in 2022. Joe Flacco named the starting quarterback. We could see Jerry Jeudy just run it back. Or we could see, the Jerry Jeudy of the past where it's very, very confusing and it's not very good and he ends up being a bust. Cedric Tillman really showed up last year, those 3-game stretch where he was really healthy. We know Flacco loves Njoku. Jerry Jeudy, he's fine. I just don't feel great about selecting him. Number 39, Matthew Golden. Now, here's a guy, Jim, that I really like. Matthew Golden. And I want to be a Jaden Riley Reed guy. I love Jaden Reed. I love Jaden Reed. I really do. I've been talking up him for years. But he's in the fucking walking boot, and Matthew Golden, everyone's oogling and ogling over Matthew Golden. Look how great Matthew Golden is. I mean, the guy never had over 1,000 receiving yards in college, but it's not going to matter. All the fucking clips I'm seeing, the guy's just wide open. The cornerbacks stand 0 chance against him, and he's very fast. So if he becomes the true wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, it's worth the pick alone, especially if Jordan Love plays like he did back in 2023. So I'm a big fan of the Packers. I'm a big fan of Jordan Love. So why not take the shot in his wide receiver 1, who's probably going to be Matthew Golden because Jada Reed is still hurt. Final guy here is Deebo Samuel. I hate Deebo Samuel. It's so gross to me that I even have to put him in the top 40. Because for years, I've hated on Deebo. I said, it is impossible for him to replicate what he did in 2021. And the whole comment section got their panties in a bunch. Nick, it's so possible he's going to do it again. And then he doesn't for 3 straight years, right? And last year, he's the wide receiver 51 in points per game. But still, people are oogling and ogling over him. But I have to acknowledge at this point that if Terry McLaurin still hasn't signed the contract, Deebo Samuel has to move up the rankings, right? Every day Terry ain't there, Deebo is going to keep crawling up the rankings. And the rankings are updated on Patreon all the time. So make sure you check out the link in the video description. These rankings are not final. I'm going to be updating them all the way through the start of the season. I love Deebo Samuel. Deep down, actually, that's like fake narrative. I don't love Deebo Samuel. I like what I saw to Deebo in 2021, but his price has always been too high. But now his price is suppressed. Like an AK-47, AK-74U in Black Ops 1. That thing was OP pre-patch. Deebo Samuel, chubby. He's kind of slimmed down a little bit. Not as big. Not fat Deebo. Terry's not there. He's a steal. If Terry's there, he probably sucks ass. So we'll see what happens. Right now, I just have to move him up my rankings. Because again, every day Terry doesn't sign, the door is much more open for Deebo. But here's some more hater facts about Deebo. 4 of 15 games with 13 plus PPR points. That's not good. 8 of 15 games with fewer than 10 PPR points. Not good at all. I want to love Deebo, but I just simply can't. But maybe Cliff Kingsbury is the kind of guy that's going to really figure out how to get him usage in the red zone, especially now with them getting rid of B-Rob. It just pushes more towards the narrative of actually liking Deebo Samuel. So again, while I was completely out on him, the door is a little bit more open for me now. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you long time. Make sure you get the Patreon link in the video description. I love you so much. I hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy!